How we doing today, neighbors? Ian with eTrailer here. Today we're going to take a look at and then install the Air Lift WirelessOne air compressor on our 2017 Ford F-350 Super Duty. Let's get into a couple features of that and then the install. So the F-350 is going to be a great towing vehicle, and you're going to have plenty of capacity when it comes to that towing capacity. But you may feel a little bit of that road jostle from heavier loads, and with our neighbor here having the in-bed fifth wheel prep already done by the factory, they're going to be throwing a fifth wheel in that bed and then towing some pretty heavy loads. So to take a lot of that sag out and also increase the longevity of their own suspension already on the truck, they have paired this compressor with a set of 7,500 bags. Those bags are going to be working from our compressor, which is located here on the frame rail, hidden up underneath, and from inside of the cab of the vehicle using either their phone and the app provided by Air Lift or this wireless remote that you can pair to it. You can quickly adjust the amount. That compressor will kick on and fill those bags to the requested amount in a very short amount of time. And the reason that's going to be beneficial is if you were to either lighten your load or make the load heavier or make any changes in the load, you'd want to be able to switch your bag pressure very, very quickly without having to get out and use the manual fill valve wherever that's on the outside of the vehicle. In addition to you manually being able to adjust, it does have the option for two presets that you can select between, and if they happen to be lower pressures, that compressor will automatically reduce down to the requested pressure. And this compressor is a heavy-duty compressor, allowing you up to 100 psi for your bags, so it is going to work with either those Air Lift or Firestone bags, regardless of what you have. And as for the install on this one, I'm going to walk you through the whole process, and since we're tying directly into the 12-volt system and getting into the frame, I will say it's a little bit involved, but really not that bad and can be done in your driveway. But if you happen to watch the video and see anything that you wouldn't feel like tackling, always do remember we've got that dealer locator on the website that would be happy to help you find a trained professional in your local area to get that installed. Otherwise, for those DIYers, let's go ahead and hop into it and we'll get that taken care of. To get started, we will have to find the place where our compressor is going to live, and I wanted to show you how we've got ours set up here. It's going to be right under that rear passenger door, and we've got it directly mounted. For us, we used the provided self-tappers and went directly into the frame, so there is a bit of frame drilling you may have to do. It does come with a U-bolt kit that wraps directly to our bracket here, and so there is the option for that, but we found the frame in most spots was too wide to be able to use that U-bolt. So it does come with a nice set of heavy self-tappers, and when you drill those holes out, make sure you're going just slightly smaller than the diameter of that screw, so that way it's got plenty to bite into on the way in. And then you'll just kind of want to go in some, back it out a little bit, and continue to do that until you've got it all the way flush against the frame. With that mounted, we can begin our connections to the compressor, and I always like to start with our air filter. So that inlet filter is going to come with this piece of very malleable black hose, and we've just secured that going up to this body mount here, and that body mount just behind it is going to have a spot where the bed connects to the frame, and that bed mount is going to have a 3/8 hole, which is going to work perfect for our push pin that is included on the filter bracket. You will have to just hand tighten on the fitting that has the barb for your other end of that line going to the compressor, but once that's done, you can just push that filter directly up into that 3/8 hole. It will click into place, and it can live safely there away from any debris or water possibly. Now it will come with a pretty good amount of our air line here, and you'll just want to make sure that the end of that is cut completely flush and not crimped at all. Best way to do that is either a pair of tubing cutters, or you can use a block of wood and a straight razor to be able to cut that. We just want to make sure there's no barbs or edges or anything that could catch, because we will need to plug that into the fitting that's located on the bottom of our compressor here. And to ensure that we've got that in correctly, we'll just go all the way to the bottom. You'll feel it bottom out. You can give that a little tug and then push it in one more time, and then it should not come out anymore. I will say, when you're initially running your line, you want to avoid anything hot or moving, of course, and then we're going to leave a small loop just right here by the compressor, so that way it can build up any moisture before the compressor's pushing that out to the bags. Now, following that line, we've come up along the frame rail here, going through the brackets for the body mount and the bed mount, up over the frame, following the existing lines, and up over the fuel tank. And over that fuel tank, we've tied to the def lines and the fuel lines, so that way it's got something supporting it. And then again, over the frame, following the def tank back. And from over the top of the def tank here, we'll come to our first tee. And this is going to include a set of 2 tees, and as we had talked about, since this is a single path, we're only worried about the one line coming back to both of our bags. So we've got our first breakaway going to our airbag on the driver's side. The other line is going to start to head towards the back, following the existing wiring harness. We're coming to our second tee here, which is going to break off in 2 directions. One of them is following this cross member here to go to our passenger side airbag, while the other line is following the wiring harness going back. And this will go to our manual fill valve that we can manually fill up if we choose not to use the compressor. And following the branch that goes over to our passenger side, it did follow that cross member down along the O2 sensor wiring that's here. You do want to put some type of heat shield in between the bag, the lines, and any hot components. So the bag kit that we used had this. It does not come with the compressor, so just keep that in mind. And then that air line just goes directly to our passenger side bag here. Now we can concentrate on the wiring for this. We'll start with our plug, because that's going to be the easiest one. You'll just want to make sure that the tab of where it locks is facing in towards the frame, and then we're just going to push that right on until you've got that positive click. And then the little red tab on that will also come down, locking that in place. We'll then turn our attention to our power and ground, which the power for our compressor is going to be coming from the main harness, and that will be the red and white striped wire, and that's going to the red wire on the compressor. So what we'll need to do is take off the blade terminal that is on there, strip that back, and then we're going to add one of the yellow butt connectors included with the kit. And we'll crimp each end. Starting with that side with the red wire, we'll strip back the end of our red wire with the white stripe. And we will insert the red wire with the white stripe into the other end of our butt connector and get that crimped. The butt connectors included with the kit are heat shrink to help protect them from any corrosion or debris, so we'll go ahead and get that shrunk up as well. Now for that additional ground wire that we have coming off the compressor, I've just taken the extra and looped that to a zip tie here on the bracket, and then use the provided eyelet to go straight to our self-tapper, which is biting into the frame, giving us that good ground at the compressor. For the rest of the wiring harness, we've just got that ran up along the frame rail following the existing wiring. Once we've got up to the firewall, we're just following straight up and a couple AC lines. We'll go ahead and hop under this real quick, take a look at everything I've zip tied to, and then we'll hop up in the engine bay next. Again, we did use that factory harness that was already running down this passenger side frame rail, and about every foot or so we've got a zip tie securing that all the way down to the front of the vehicle. Now again, this is like running those air lines for everything. We want to make sure we're avoiding any hot or moving parts, and it is pretty easy to get away from that exhaust and just come to the right side, passenger side here. Just coming up that firewall, zip tying again to any existing looming we can find. And then we do have our fused ignition line. That is an optional line that does not need to be hooked up. So I've just got that coiled here and zip tied safely out of the way. That way if the neighbor ever does choose to hook that up, they've got the option still. So we do have our remaining 2 wires, that ground and then our power source. We're going to be going directly to the battery for both of those. So I'm going to start here with our fused positive source. So what we want to do is find a good stud that we're going to let that live on. We're probably going to go with this outer one here, so we'll make sure we've got good routing with our wire, and then cut that down about to size. We are going to be putting in line a fuse holder that will come with the kit. You want to make sure you've got the fuse removed. It's going to come as this loop here, so we'll just cut that dead center of that loop. We'll come back and strip both of the ends of this and the end of that positive wire. We'll now take that positive lead and the other heat shrink butt connector we've got with that, get it crimped to the positive wire. Grab one end of our fuse connector, place that into the butt connector and get that crimped. And then we'll heat shrink that down for that added protection. Now we're going to be putting one of the provided ring terminals onto the end and crimping that down. I did want to mention it's the exact same process for that negative line. Just strip it back, add that into it, making sure we've got a little bit of wire exposed at the end, and then we'll give that a good crimp. Now we're ready to take a 10mm socket, and we're going to hook up our positive lead first. So we'll just remove the nut off of that. And slide that ring terminal over the top. And put the nut back into place. Cover back on. So we did find that unfortunately this stud will not work for your ground, but there is a factory ground to chassis just right next to it. So we're going to hop right onto that. It is an 8mm to remove that bolt. And we'll slide that ring terminal over that factory bolt and put it back into place. Now I'm going to have the remote ready and go ahead and pull the tab on that just so the battery in it is communicating as soon as we're ready. And we'll take the 15 amp provided fuse with the kit and get that plugged in. And then we'll put that dust cover on it and then use some additional zip ties to kind of get this secured to this bracket. Now you can push any button on the remote and it will begin pairing. It's going to find our device. So we'll go ahead and select the compressor. And it's looking to hook up now. Now, one thing we did find when getting this remote to pair to the device, the pairing itself is a little difficult, and it has to be done within 90 seconds of putting that 15 amp fuse in place. So you may have to pull this back out if the remote fails to pair. And then what you'll want to do is we found walking back and forth in between the front of the vehicle and where the compressor is finally made it pair. So you may run into a situation where it says failed to pair multiple times. Just continue to walk back and forth with the remote by the compressor and eventually it will connect. They're just a little fickle when it comes to getting that initial connection. And that's going to do for our look at an installation of the Air Lift WirelessOne air compressor on our 2017 Ford F-350 Super Duty. My name's Ian with eTrailer, and I appreciate you watching.